Okay, so this is basically just an update or a few updates that I introduced to the depository application. So again, I have to make things clear. This is just a example. This is just application. This is not a real application. This is just application, web application that I built for my class, and it has nothing to do with KPM. It has nothing to do with JPN Kedah. I have to put that into this disclaimer. All right, so from a previous class, I do have problem with my checkbox here. So this is update on an update for that. So before this, I have problem with this checkbox when I try to submit this using a form. So you can look here under in the login.html. So you just go to the login.html, and under login.html, so this is the form login. So inside the form login, you can see there's the input here, checkbox input with ID and name. You don't have to put any value. You don't have to define any value because that is the main problem that I'm having. If I supply the value and press the submit button, for some reason I cannot get the value from this checkbox. It didn't submitted through my post array. Okay, so it didn't submit it. So I'm having problem being able to read the value, but now I think I solved the problem. So I just remove the value and read the value through a different mechanism, a different way, which I'm going to show. So the idea is that when user click on this remember me, so we're going to store this in cookie. So again, it is not advisable to store password and username in through cookie, but this is just for learning purposes. For this, we need I'm using JavaScript to store cookie. So which means that if user selected on this and they enter the email and password and press submit button, so we're going to save email and password in the cookie file. So for that to happen, you need to look into depository. So in the depository.js, the JavaScript file, you can see there's a number of functions. So this function here to set cookies, and this function here to get cookies. All right, so we're going to look at this set cookies function. So set cookie functions basically will be called true validate form. So if the form, the input text validated, their email and pass, we will set the cookies and call set cookies function. So inside set cookie function, we get these three values, which is from our form: ID email, ID password, and ID remember. Right, so these three value basically for these two values should be easy to get because we can just use the form name and the ID for that particular element and get its value. But for the checkbox, we cannot get its value because it didn't pass through the form. So we need to check its value through .check. So .check basically will return value the value that is written basically true or false. Okay, so when it return true or false, we can just use if remember me. So if remember me, so we like to remember, and then how do we store into cookie? So it can be, you can use the following to get the how long they're going to store in our cookie. So let's say I set this to 10 days, so you can change the value here. So this is 10 days. You get the duration for the expiring of the cookies. And then to write into the cookies, you just give the document.cookie, and then we assign with the key value. So the key value here is a C username. So C username equal email that we get from this variable, and then C password we get from the password up here. And we need to set expiry date for each of the cookies. And the third cookies that we want to store is the remember me cookies. So remember me cookies will store either true or false. Alright, also set the expiry date. So this is basically a concatenation of a string. So if remember me is true, which means that user click on remember me. If remember me is false, we basically going to remove our cookie through the following instruction. So we just reset our cookie, C username to nothing, C pass to nothing, remember me to nothing. Alright. Okay, so this part here basically just to reset our cookie. So C username, C set to nothing, C pass set to nothing, remember me set to nothing. And the expiry date is back to this date. We path its expiry date, and path set to the directory, the application, the web directory. Alright, so that is for set cookie. So which means that our application here allow us to set our to a new cookie. And then for when we, let me just go back to home. So this is our home index.html. So if you go to the back to the login, you'll be able to see that username, email and password already be there, and remember me automatically click. So if I remove this and submit it, should be able to log in, and if I go back to log out, you can see that the email and password no longer there, and also together with the remember me checkbox, because we remove through this instruction. Alright, so that basically for cookie, and I'm going to pass that as I think it is a success. I've tested this using different browser. So let's say let me try using Microsoft Edge, localhost depository, and try to log in. So for this is for each browser, they have their own cookie. So for Edge, they have their cookie. I'm not quite sure for Edge because they have this. So let me just try to enter my. Okay, remember me. Press submit button. Login successful. No. So let me log out. Log out. So go home. Log in. Now the page currently remember our email and password. But please remember that we cannot use. I'm not quite sure what is the standard for storing email and password in cookie, because cookie is not quite secure in terms of storing the data. So you might want to warn user that storing email and password should only you should only be stored in your private computer or your personal computer. So there should be warning for that. Alright, so that is for one of the updates. So I'm going to talk about another topic later, but this should cover for storing cookies. Getting cookies, so that one I need to show also how to load cookies when you load the page. So for example, like let me close this one first back, and then go back to, right, so to load cookies, so go home, log in. So to load cookies, you need to go back to login.html and look into bodies. You can see here the body of this HTML page. There's an onload load cookies functions, which basically implemented by this load cookies. Alright, so what happened here is that load cookies function will look or will try to get cookies based on the key value, and all these three variables here, username, password, and remember me, we use another function called get cookies and pass this string, the key value or the pair value, which basically will pass to this function. Alright, so in this function, what we have is that it basically performs some substring analysis to look for whatever value that pass this semicolon. Okay, and then it will return that value or the substring for that value, because we just want to get the value that represented after this. Like for example, like this, anything before the semicolon here and after the equal here. So the value for username is right after equal, and the value for C password right after equal. So that's why you can see the way that is being decoded. So we just want to get the value before split. We want to get the first value, and then get any value with the intended C name. Alright, so we can decode URI component using this get cookie function. So you can just pass any key value that we like to look for, and then assign to our variable. And then this is just to print out console to the console, just to confirm that the value is there. And you can easily look through your console, like for example in through here. So you can just go to inspect and open up your console. So this is your console here. So if you go to login, you should be able to see this console printout. Cookies, just email and ABC123 true, so implemented through cookies, and this is basically the value they want to use. Email, password, and true. This is for the checkbox down here. And then we just assign the value. We get from document.form, so our form name is a login form, and then the element that we like to set its value is ID email and ID pass, and assign this to username and password that we get from up here. And for the check from the ID remember, this one for the checkbox. So the way we want to set the value or check the value or not, true if remember me is true, so we set the check to true. If else, we check the check to false. That's it. It's quite simple to implement, and that basically should allow you to get these remember me features. Okay, so you can use my GitHub reference, GitHub link to refer to the codes. So this basically cover the cookie topics. Alright, so I think that's all for cookie topics. I'm going to talk about the other side, the other topics that I missed out during the class in other video. Alright, so stay tuned. Bye bye.